this journey, I think, has been surprising for some, but some of us have seen it now. And those schematics that we talked about, here's what ended up happening over the last 3 years. They leaned on a great pass rusher in 21 and Aiden Hutchinson. They had a really good interior of their defensive line last year, but this year everything came together. And when everything came together, what ended up being the product was the best team in college football. And not just because they won the national championship, but because they were the most consistent, the most dominant, the most physical team all year long. So the best team won the national championship this year. And I don't think that there's any doubt about that. Now, you could make an argument, and I think some probably would because people like to argue, that at their best, maybe, Georgia, because of just their overall talent level, maybe Georgia. But the problem is that they didn't play their best every single week. In fact, Georgia was incredibly up and down. And because of that, they got beat. And you can't say that about Michigan. They were really good every time that they got an opportunity to play. They instituted their game plan. They operated through their strengths every time that they got to play. And they were the best, most physical, the deepest defensive line in particular in all of college football all year long. And once again, here we are crowning a national champion. And what does that national champion have? It's not like the NFL where you have to have the quarterback. Even though J.J. McCarthy is good and Stetson Bennett did a nice job over the last couple of years for Georgia, college football is still not directly about the quarterback. If that was the case, then Michael Penix in Washington would have won the game. In college football, the most important unit on the field to win the national championship is currently the defensive line. The best defensive line in college football for the last 3 years has won the national championship. They just destroy everybody at the line of scrimmage. They allow the defense to play safer coverages, which doesn't allow Washington to create big plays. So those guys up front, whether it's Mason Graham, 55, Chris Jenkins, by the way. I mean, what a good player he's been, and he's gained weight every single. You talk about development. 3 years ago, Chris Jenkins was not an elite interior defensive lineman. Now he's an elite interior defensive lineman. Let's see. I know Cam Good was hurt in this game, so he didn't get a chance to play. But I mentioned Mason Graham. You've got Kenneth Grant. Oh my gosh, this dude is like legit. He's such a good player. Their depth in the interior, their ability to rush the passer, their ability to stop the run, that's the strength of the team. And now, again, the defensive line wins the national championship. And they were built, this whole shift, they were built to retain what Jim Harbaugh, I think, would always want his teams to be. So through all the change, he didn't throw out, what is the saying? He didn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. He threw the bathwater out, but he knew that deep inside, he was still going to be a great line of scrimmage team. And what were they? A great line of scrimmage team. And they won the line of scrimmage in this game on Monday night. 300 yards rushing. The defensive line was dominant. And that's a team that, I got to tell you, not many teams could line up with what Michigan had this year. Not many teams could line up with them this year. A couple of other things I want to talk about in terms of maybe even Monday night in particular. A guy that I don't think gets enough credit, and probably a lot of it is because of the sign-stealing saga, if you will, but Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator for Michigan, is one hell of a coach. I have enjoyed thoroughly getting a chance to meet and talk football with him. He is so bright. Great game plans. Let me peek behind the curtain for a moment. As I prep all week, and listen, these coaches, they spend more time doing this than I do. Although this is my profession, okay? I know what I'm looking at. I have been around this sport my entire life. All right. I was a young 4, 5, 6-year-old. And some of my fondest memories were watching reel-to-reel film in my kitchen with my dad, who was a high school football coach. And he would bring it home, the film, literally the old reel-to-reel film, and watch it. It'd be forward and back. And I was just around the sport forever and ever. So I like to think that I have a good feel for the X's and O's and the schematics of the game and the philosophy of the game. And so when I watch film all week, I have a great opportunity to have a more 30,000-foot view than even the coaches that are in the game, because they're in the minutia of their own teams and injuries and things like that. And I get to kind of see it from a bit of a higher level, which I think is an advantage. And when I go in, there are times when I'm meeting with a coach, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking to myself, this game plan that he's explaining to me is not going to work. I'm not going to name names. Some of them have actually come up to me and said, hey, yeah, that meeting that we had, that was not good on my part. And listen, good on them. But that happens. That happens. Then there are times when I go into a meeting and I realize oh my gosh, this team is going to win. This coach knows exactly what's going on. His game plan is perfect. He sees it, and good luck to the other team. That happens a lot with Jesse Minter. A lot. It doesn't happen a lot all the time, but it happens a lot with him. There are some other guys that I feel that way about around college football, but boy, Jesse Minter is about as good as they come. And I know he's a young guy, and there's a good chance that he's going to be in the NFL really soon. I know that's where he cut his teeth. I think that's where he wants to end up eventually, although that would be a huge miss for college football. But this dude's elite. He's elite. The game plan that he had on Monday night was tremendous. He put the entire onus of the game and the run game, stopping the run game, just in the front four's hands. He's like, listen, you guys are the best in college football. You handle that, and I'm going to design coverages and brackets and different types of things for Michael Penix to look at so that we don't give up big plays. And granted, there were a few times where they busted coverage and Penix missed, or on the fourth down, he doesn't connect with Odunze. And those are if you're a Husky fan, those are just mind-blowing misses. You're like, oh my gosh, we can't miss those opportunities. And you're right. And you're right, because you're not going to get that many of them against a Minter defense. And that secondary was tremendous. Will Johnson, the other 5-star player that Michigan has, he was fantastic. Mikey Sainristil, who started as an offensive player and developed into the best nickel corner in college football. Those safeties were physical. They tackled well in space. Minter was amazing in this game. He really was.